All right. Well, welcome to Benchmark's webinar on managing pavement projects around facility operations. We're excited to be here with you today for this quick 30-minute webinar. We want to kick things off by sharing just a little bit about Benchmark. So Benchmark's profile, we are a roof and pavement consulting company that was established in 1983. We are independently and privately owned. We have about 115 employees. We have two offices, one in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and one in Waukesha, Wisconsin. And then we have about 20, maybe a little bit more, 21, 22 consultants that work out of their houses throughout the United States. Benchmark offers kind of three main services. We have evaluations, which really help with asset development. Design, bid, and construction phase services, along with program management of helping our clients to manage their fleet of roof or pavement assets. And then we recently added UAV imagery as well. So that's just a little bit about who we are. Benchmark's core values. We are committed to being a strong team based on relationships and trust. We are really committed to being technically excellent. And at Benchmark, we like to say we're committed to being a benchmark, doing the right thing. Our core focus at Benchmark is to develop strong relationships and deliver proven results. And our promise is to always keep your best interest in mind. So with that, Troy and I are going to kick things off today. We are your two presenters for today's webinar. Troy Kaiser is a senior consultant with Benchmark's Pavement Division. He's been involved in the pavement industry since 1984, and Troy has been with Benchmark since 2006. Troy is involved in various client pavement programs and very instrumental in design and rehabilitation projects. You can see Troy's got his safety vest on. He is coming in live from a project out in Virginia. So he's currently managing the construction oversight of a pavement project in Virginia. So we're glad to have you with us today, Troy. Thank you for taking a few minutes off of your project to be here with us. And I'm Elise Schmidt. I am the operations manager at Benchmark and one of our pavement account managers. I help to lead the day-to-day operations for both our roof and our pavement teams. And then I also am an account manager for some of our national pavement programs. So we are excited to share with you some information here today. So I think most of you are aware that this is a three-part webinar series, and it's really been designed to guide you through the complexities and the nuances of pavement projects and really to help mitigate the operational disruption and maximizing the efficiency of your projects. So often we hear from clients or new prospects that we're talking with that they just can't even comprehend how they might shut down their dock doors, how they might shut down a main entrance to a store. And so we want to touch on some of the things that you should take into account. So today in our 30-minute session, we're going to talk about the how and the why. So today we're going to Troy's going to introduce to you some of the fundamentals of managing a pavement project, specifically around facility operations. And then next week, Wednesday, October 16th at the same time, we're going to be back here with you for 60 minutes. And next week is our panel discussion. We're super excited about that. So we're going to be coming to you live with a panel of our pavement consultants. And our pavement consultants will be discussing challenges and solutions that they encounter in the field day in and day out. And they're going to answer all of your questions. So this is where we ask for your help today. We are still working on the content for next week, and we want to build upon what you want to learn about. So as Troy's presenting today, if you have questions, specific questions for our pavement consultants, we want to hear from you. We want you to put that in the chat, and we're going to build some content around that for next week and be prepared to answer your questions. If you specifically have some challenges that you are concerned with when it comes to your next pavement project, put that in the chat as well. We want to hear what concerns and challenges you have, and we'll be prepared to answer those questions live for you next week. And you'll have a chance at the end to also get some questions in there. We're not going to have a lot of Q&A time today, if any, because it's a short 30 minutes that we have, but we promise to get everything addressed. We will be sharing contact information on the final slide. So if you have a photo of a challenge that you have and you want to send it over, you can send that to Troy and I as well, and we'll get that worked in to our content development for next week as well. And then the final week, The week, Wednesday, October 23rd at 11 a.m. Central Time again, we're going to spend some time going through some real project case studies. We've identified 5 projects so far that we want to share with you. We're going to walk you through those real life case studies and showcase some of the successful things that happened in those projects, or maybe some of the not successful things we learned throughout those projects. So we are super excited to bring you this 3-part webinar series. So objectives for today, we're really going to concentrate the next 25 minutes on the why and the how. So we're going to talk about pavement construction projects' impact to site operations and all of the various things that you should be considering for planning purposes. All right, Troy, I'll hand it off to you.
Thanks, Elise. So basically, these are our challenging projects, busy sites. Basically breaks down into 2 different types. One is industrial, loading docks, truck areas, truck entrances. And the second would be a retail site. How do we keep our customers having access to the store? Handicap stall issues. And a lot of these things I'm going to be talking about are things that should be considered during the design phase, and to help you navigate the challenges of, boy, I can't shut down my parking lot, or I can't shut down my truck docks to do the pavements, to maybe show you that it can be done. Because what it comes down to is the bigger areas we can give for these contractors to work on, the better pricing we're going to get, because they'll get better production, less mobilizations, moving crews on and off, especially when you're talking about concrete pavements that need time to cure. So they do actually leave the site. And so that's what I'm going to be kind of touching on, some of the little nuances from these challenging projects. So where to start is pre-planning. I found that the best thing to do is get everyone involved, especially at the industrial sites, get production, receiving, shipping, security, and trucking logistics. Get everyone involved in the project that it's going to affect, because those are your best sources for brainstorming and getting better ideas, and kind of out of the box ideas. People who don't work on pavements all the time sometimes can think of stuff that we don't think of, because we're kind of locked into a certain way of doing things. So I really encourage having these meetings before you even do your plans and specs, to talk about how are we going to build this project, so that we can make sure the contractors understand fully how it's going to be built. And just open brainstorming, where you just write down every idea, no matter how crazy it is, and sometimes you'll come up with your best solutions. And some of that will be covered in the case studies that we're going to show in the 3rd phase of this webinar series. And as part of that pre-planning process, we like to come up with a set of plans showing how the project's going to be built. And we share that with all those people that were involved in that pre-planning meeting, so they can visualize it and sign off on how it's going to be built. So kind of do a follow-up meeting, go over this plan, spread it out on a desk or a table, and have those same people involved to just tweak it before it finally goes out to contractors. So when you're thinking about when's the best time to do these projects, what always comes up is we're going to have a plant shut down for either a holiday, or some other. I've had plants that had to shut down for employee training or whatever. And those are great times to try to plan these projects. But generally, those windows of opportunity are pretty small for a paving project. Also, holidays pose an issue, because sometimes you can't get asphalt plants or concrete plants or stone suppliers to be open on the holidays. They want to be home with their families as well. So it's something to consider, but not always something that we can do. Very seldom do we do projects over holidays because of that. Slower seasons are a good time. We've got clients in the food service industry that they have slower seasons when they're not at high production, less trucks coming in. They can give us more loading docks to work on at a time. And so slower seasons are a good time to do projects like this. Be aware, though, sometimes in the summertime when schools are closed, the contractors get very busy working on school projects that have to be done between May and August. So planning and that pre-planning, giving yourself a lot of time to get the bids out, lock the contractors in even the fall before for the next summer, because they may have school projects that they have to do when your plant is shut down in the middle of the summertime. And so I want to stress that try to get your projects planned and going way ahead of the construction season. Maintenance periods are also a good time to try to plan these projects. A lot of food service industries, they'll have times where the plants have to shut down for cleaning. Sometimes you'll get a whole week where you can get a lot of your work done in a week. So let's take advantage of those management or maintenance shutdowns, as well as the holiday or the slowdown times. Alternate entrance and exits. Just because your trucks come in one entrance doesn't mean that during construction we can't come up with an alternate entrance. We can get these portable guard shacks, set them up with electricity and phone service, cellular. Sometimes you can even run cable lines, but there are ways to use alternate entrances to get your trucks shipping and receiving in and out by setting up these temporary security buildings. Alternate parking lots, not so much for retail sites, but let's say you have to redo an employee parking lot. Well, you have to get your employees to your job or to their jobs. So sometimes if you have remote parking lots, or even you can rent parking lots that are close by from your neighbors and have buses available to truck them to the site. It's one way to make sure we can give the contractors a bigger chunk to work on and actually get the project done sooner. I like to say, let's get the paint over as quickly as possible and get those, utilize these other resources to make that happen. So consider using busing. Another thing about alternate lots, even for trucking, sometimes you can find alternate neighbors' shipping lots or trailer lots that they're not using. I've had this happen where our client was able to store or stage a lot of their trailers off-site at a neighbor's site that they weren't using their particular lot, or the building wasn't even occupied, so there was a ton of trailer storage in that area, and they were able to get enough trailers off-site that were able to rebuild their trailer lot more efficiently. New technologies, the new technologies that are coming in are becoming to be quite a challenge. Your high-tech businesses, it's not just having a gate with a guard that checks people in and out. They've got these readers now that read barcodes on the trailers or even the license plates. And so you have to take that all into consideration when you're setting up an alternate entrance exit, that we have to also set up for this new technology. It's made things more difficult, but it's certainly challenges that can be overcome. But something you should think about when you're trying to plan these type of projects and with these alternate entrances. Don't be afraid to make an entrance where there isn't an entrance. Fences can be removed and replaced. You can put in temporary gates if you need gates to be shut at night when things aren't happening. So it's all part of thinking outside the box. We just because there's not an entrance in some place, we can certainly make that happen. Taking down fences and putting fences back up is a really inexpensive operation. Alternate roadways, temporary roadways can be constructed. They can be left in gravel or put a hard pavement in. Sometimes they can be left in place when the project's done for fire lanes. I've seen that happen where they were turned into just an emergency fire lane access, even though they weren't being used anymore. Or you can pull those temporary access routes and temporary roadways back out and restore the areas with landscaping again. So it's all part of that. Let's come up with a different way of doing things. Alternate delivery systems. I've had this happen on projects where we were totally focused on the trucks coming in and out, and one of the people we invited to the pre-planning meeting said, well, we can bring everything in by rail line. And it helped us, again, get the materials, keep the operations going at the plant, because that's the number one priority, is to keep your businesses in operation while we do our business. And railways or other alternative delivery systems are something that should be taken into consideration as well. Stockpiling of materials for production is something that's been done in the past on some of our projects. Before the project starts, get enough materials on site and stored so that production isn't affected, and also stockpiling goods for shipping at the same time in your outgoing docks can really help us out during the construction phase and give you a way to get these pavements reconstructed without shutting down your operations. Bidding documents, like I mentioned before, we want to make sure all those details and phasing and how that project's going to be built are included in the bidding documents so that the contractors know the expectations for, we're going to be able to do 6 docks at a time or 6 trailer slots at a time. We want to make sure that's up front so the pricing you get is locked in, and we won't get price creep later when the contractor finds out that he can only do a portion of the work at a time. Also, we want to, once we select the contractor, we like to bring them in and talk about the phasing as well, because sometimes they can come up with ideas that we didn't think about and come up with a better way of phasing a project, keeping things operational. So just another avenue of ideas to make the project more efficient. Then, of course, we want to make sure we have a pre-construction meeting, invite everybody who's got a stake in the project just to reaffirm the important details, make sure everybody understands the plan so there's no questions on day one why we're doing what we're doing. And then just, like I said, just set the expectations for the contractor and also for the stakeholders that how it's going to work out, and create a atmosphere of teamwork that we're all working together to make sure the project gets done. And finally, flexibility is a must. Communication is essential. So obviously, there's a quote out there that every good battle plan goes out the window the day the attack starts. Same thing with construction projects. On day one, you might find something's not working like you planned. You've got to be flexible enough to change the plan and communicate. Communication is key to these type of projects. And this is my last slide, and Elise said I should point this out, but this is from an actual benchmark project from this year. If you don't understand what this is a machine that incorporates base stabilization into soft subgrade to make sure the subgrade can be buildable on so that the project lasts. And it was so soft we couldn't even get the machine to go through the project. So no matter how, just a reminder that no matter how complicated or your project is or how much of a problem you think it's going to be, it could be a lot worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Elise.
Troy. So Troy, a couple of questions for you. There were a lot of things there that you went through that actually we didn't really touch outside of just the pre-construction meeting and the phasing plans, really about the design phase. So what kind of time frame do some of these planning stages that you have to take into consideration? Like, how early should people be planning for some of these things when planning for a capital expenditure project?
I think 6 months at a minimum. It takes a good, 30 to 90 days to get the geotech work done, the design done, permitting. You go to a city and it can take 4 weeks just to get the city to sign off on your plans and any changes you had to make to those plans. And then you want to give your contractors plenty of time to bid the job. So you want to give them 2 or 3 weeks to look at the plans, come up with alternative ideas, alternate methods, dump sites that they may not have, under contract yet. Just things that they can do to make sure that they're given the best prices and can get the job. And then the award. Sometimes it takes a long time to get contracts in place. You want to lock in your schedule with your contractor once you select your contractor, so that you're getting it built in the time period you want to get built. So I think 6 months is not unrealistic to start this planning for these projects. So you're talking a year, the fall before the summer, you want to start the project.
Sure. And one of the things we talked about was potentially, scheduling a project around a plant shutdown. And so if it's always really good to provide insight to the contractors at the time of bidding that these are the windows, this is the time frame. If we're able to, we'll give them a schedule, like client is requesting you start by June 1st and must be completed by August 31st, or whatever that looks like. But if there is a specific plant shutdown, it certainly is a benefit to the facility, but it also can increase costs because there's less flexibility for the contractor to work that project in. Same thing, I know you mentioned that a lot of it can be hard to get materials on a holiday, specifically kind of a holiday weekend. Any idea how much more that will add to the cost if an asphalt or concrete supplier is willing to produce a product on a holiday weekend, how that impacts the overall budget of a project, Troy?
I think the last project I was on, they wanted an additional $10,000 to be open over on a Sunday. Just because asphalt plants have power needs that sometimes they have to pay a premium if they're pulling electricity on a day that they haven't set up for with the power utility. They got to pay overtime for their people to be there, obviously, and it just it can be quite expensive. But when you think about it, $10,000 on maybe $1 million paving project, it might be worth it to the client to pay that. And so it's good to have that up front in the bidding documents, telling the contractor exactly when that project's going to be built and what the expectations are, whether it be weekend work, night work. They're going to be required to do night work. Again, plants aren't normally open at night. So, but they are generally willing to be open at night if there's a lot of tonnage. If it's a big project and they're going to be, putting down a lot of material at the nighttime. And nighttime during the week is generally not a very large upcharge for them. It's just the weekend and the holidays is where you get some of your upcharges for plants to be open.
Okay. And you also, I meant to ask this when we went through, you talked about alternate entrances and exits and bringing in some temporary guard shacks. Any idea what kind of cost that adds to a project if somebody has to consider that? I know you kind of just came off of a project that you experienced that on this year.
Yeah, I did come off of one, and this was a very low tech. They didn't have to have the high tech card reading kind of equipment, and I think it was $5,000 a week was what it was costing them to have that. It was a guard shack plus a generator to run the power for that guard shack because we couldn't get power out there without running cables across the driveways, and that wouldn't work out. So yeah, about $5,000 a week is what it costs for a temporary shack in that case. Obviously, it's going to be more if we have to set up some high tech, more of a one-time charge, not a weekly charge, to make sure that we have those card readers or barcode readers in place and the computer technology available to power all that stuff.
Certainly. And sometimes we see projects that run 1 week in duration. I know the project you're on right now is estimated to be about 3 weeks. We also have a couple consultants who have been on projects that are at 26, 28 weeks so far this year. So every project has kind of a different duration based on the size, scope, and the area that they're able to work in at a given time based on the operations, managing around the facility operations.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Troy, anything else that you want to leave our viewers with today before we wrap up here?
Just one thing I thought of while you were talking, Elise, is on employee lots or customer lots, we can put in temporary handicap stalls, and temporary handicap ramps can be installed that meet the ADA code while they're being phased. So just something that I thought I wanted to bring up in this discussion as well. Those are things that can be done to facilitate getting these projects done without too much hassle.
Awesome. Well, thank you for highlighting for us all the different challenges, all of the different aspects of things that come into managing a pavement project around facility operations that need to be taken into account at the beginning of the project, not just before starting the execution of a project. So thank you so much for your time today, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.